Welcome to this week's episode of PaddyTalks Golf, powered by 4Golf Custom, the great team in Cleancastle, Derek, Don, Christine and Jill, building better golfers. Zero tolerance custom fitting in terms of they have their own workshop. They have one of the very few component licenses on the globe. And it might be a conversation in the future to have with Derek around tolerances in OEM fitting. So if you get fit in the high street, for example. Or you're here hopefully to listen to our guest today, not necessarily me. And I'm delighted to have him on for his third episode. Is Chris Selfridge, European Tour caddy to the elite, caddies of some of the greatest on tour, Ryan Fox, Tom McGibbon, to name but a couple. With some really good insights, I fielded the questions on social media at PaddyTalks Golf on Instagram and Twitter. So much of this podcast episode or this YouTube video, whichever is your preference in listening or watching to, is your questions. So thank you all for getting involved. Make sure to follow me on that Instagram or Twitter handle to get involved and make more episodes together. So it's the collective we. So thank you all for getting involved. Some really good questions. Without any further ado, roll it there, Colette. Chris Selfridge, are you ready to tee it up?
Yep, looking forward to it.
I don't know if that was the intro to the podcast. In episode 98, you came on like for the wrapped thing I do at Christmas. And then if anybody wants to know who Chris Selfridge is in the background and getting into caddying and being one of the top elite amateurs in the game in Ireland, that's more around episode 41, both sides of the bag. I meant to check what your walk-on song was, because that's about 2 years ago, episode 41. But we'll ask you, what's your walk-on song these days? Catch you right in the hop right at the very start.
I really don't know. It's a difficult question. It was funny. I was in the gym this morning and I had a playlist on, and I sort of get a bit of a pump from this. It's like an old school song. Is it like Kelly Rowland and David Guetta, When Love Takes Over? It's about 20 years old. So I quite enjoyed that one this morning.
Classic. Straight from the liked songs playlist.
I think it's like 2009 or something like that. So.
How long have you been caddying on tour now, between the different tours?
5 years. 5 years.
5 years. Names are coming. I can't remember the guy you're caddying for at the moment at the Irish Open.
Yeah, I was caddying at the Irish Open. I was caddying for a Dutch fella called Will Besseling, but I'm not with him anymore.
That's all. So we've some people might recognize some of these names. Ryan Fox, right? Michael Hoy, Will Besseling. I remember he's been like super long. And Mr. Tom McGibbon, helping him promote from Challenge to the DP World Tour. Mm-hmm. So I threw this out onto the socials, right? Not that there's so many people following me, but they help frame this conversation hopefully nicely. So I'll name out who the question came from, and sure we might start now a conversation around it. How's that?
Yeah, sounds good.
So straight from the back of the tour truck with Chris Selfridge, that might be the thumbnail on this one. Where are we? Questions from the listeners. I'm being a tour caddy. We've Lee_Cody. What is the best way to get into it? There's a fella looking for a J1, I'd say.
I mean, that's a difficult question. We could probably run a whole podcast on that question. But the best way to get into it is to obviously know people in the industry, sort of have a connection. Whenever I started, obviously I'd played myself for 4 years, and one of my good friends at the time, Michael Hoy, had just got some tour status, and he asked me would I consider it, and I was sort of not knowing, where my life was going after I was stopping playing, really. So the easiest way to get into it is you sort of need an in. Like, you need to know someone who's playing Challenge Tour, and then you have to sort of be given an opportunity, and then you have to start on lower wages and build your way up and build your own reputation. But, I mean, it's just easier if you already know someone, isn't it?
How often do you get that question? How do I get into caddying? How can I be a caddy? Do you get that a lot?
Quite often. You get, if whenever I'm off in the summers or whatever, even in the winter, and there's a few lads, around the pub, maybe play off like 4 or 6 handicap or something, and they're like, "Oh, I want to be a caddy. How do you get into it?" And it's like, mate, I don't want to talk about this right now.
just because I was going around the Irish Open with a camera and a bag substantially lighter than a tour bag, right?
Yeah, I've seen you.
I've
seen you a few times.
I caught you on my side of the lens. But the point being, I think it's the most steps I've ever cut. It's the most steps in a week this year, right? And the phone doesn't pick up all of them. I don't tell it to, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Do you wear a whoop or do you wear a Fitbit or anything like that? Have you
I
any
do,
idea
yeah.
the amount of steps that you cover in a given week, in a week on tour?
Yeah, well, I wear a whoop. It doesn't actually get you your steps, of course, but
No.
it's
Same here.
gets
Anyone on the YouTube will get those in.
very good. No, it doesn't. Obviously, a whip doesn't pick up your steps, but like your strain can be quite high. But caddying, honestly, people talk about, is it tough and all, and the physical part of the job is not that difficult. It really isn't. There's about 2 or 3 weeks a year where it does get very difficult.
Crans.
Yeah, actually, Crans, it wasn't that hot, but where I'm going to next, for example, South African Open in a couple of weeks' time, is a place called Blair Atholl. I remember last year it was very tough because it's such a long walk. It's a very, very, very long golf course. And then, it was hot, and I think there's a bit. It's quite hilly in places. I wouldn't say it's a hilly course, but there's definitely like 4 or 5 real hilly holes on it. So, like, all things considered, that's probably one of the toughest weeks. But your average week on tour is physically, it's nowhere near as hard as people think.
Have you got your phone there? Do you know what your average strain is?
Oh, on Whoop, I don't have my phone. I left it in the kitchen because I was scared of it.
That's okay. Now, my goal last year was to have a double-digit strain. That'll tell you due to COVID, having kids. Yeah. So I got to 9.9 last year. So that's all I'm tracking this as an average daily strain. Yeah, not much.
Yeah,
work from home and all that stuff.
Yeah,
but I'm at 11.1 this year. So
that's good.
Not doing anything to do, but so I'd love to know what yours is. You might send it on to me afterwards.
Yeah, well, it's in the kitchen, as I say, but I know that
I guess 14.
Yeah, it probably would be. Some days your strain would hit up to above 18, but then some days it's maybe 11.5 or something. It's not too bad. Yeah. But I do notice in a week off, if I have a week off and I have a particularly lazy day, then your strain's like a 5.2 or something, and you're like, geez,
that's allowed.
Did absolutely nothing. That's good,
allowed. Side, like, it's not sponsored by Hoop or anything. Should be, come on, Willamette, go on, get in line. But people ask me, why do I use it? Because I'm not an athlete. I'm a dad. I'm trying to get better at golf. I wear it because it helps me. So an example being club championships at home, right?
Mm-hmm.
First time playing off the blues. You've played off the tips many times on the hinge in your amateur career in Ireland. But this was like Mecca for me. The last 2 years just to play off the tips in the club championship. And it was a beautiful day, like it is today. I think it's the same up near Moyola today. Crisp. It was about 14 degrees. No wind, benign. And I came off the course and it was as if there was a rain shower. Like, I was just the sweatiest man in the country. The strain gauge was like 19.8. The new update on the app was like your stress range, and I was between 2.5 and 3 for about 5 hours. Now, I shot 4 over par, so it was grand, but it was just me, like, Sean, it wasn't just me, like, it was a good round of golf, but it was like I was highly stressed. But the next day, it was over two rounds. It was a non-entity then, and my strain was down around 13. It just kind of me just knowing like it was going to be stressful. I spent the morning kind of just breathing before I went out. So for people that wonder, oh geez, why does Paddy wear a hoop? It's for those reasons. It's for those reasons. Just remember how to breathe sometimes. This question mightn't be about caddying, but I would love to get your opinion on it as a player, and maybe an instance of it that might have happened this year for one of your colleagues in the fair. It was Vinny Lanigan, and I play football with Vinny, and our kids used to go to the same childminder. When will anyone get a free drop out of an old divot in a fairway? No, that's beyond our control.
I mean, you probably should. Like, if they could come up with some sort of rule, like they should, you should get relief from dropping in a fairway. I think that's why we play placing so often on tour as well, because it does make it a bit more fair, doesn't it? You hit the fairway, you get to lift, clean and place your ball. You hit it in the rough, you just deal with it. But the problem with, like, when we don't play placing, it's probably like half and half, between preferred lies and non-preferred lies in the fairway. How do you define an old divot? You know what I mean? There is a line when it's 80% recovered. Is that a divot? Is it 90% recovered? Is that a divot? Is it 99%? And all of a sudden you need to have like a rules official with you all the time, and then pace of play just becomes a nightmare. So there's not a defined line, So
let's just say it's defined, and it's that 20% of the ball has to be below the whatever, right? Let's just say it's defined, and that fixes that itself. My question around that is, this year, did any of you, the boys or girls you were caddying the back for this year, end up in a divot? And what was the best or worst reaction? And how do you play that shot?
Actually, I can't recall being in a divot anytime recently, but I'm sure it's happened. I suppose it depends. It depends on the shot. I mean, a lot of the time, whenever you play like Bermuda or something, or in Spain, you can't put divots back, so they end up becoming like sandy overnight. Or sometimes they put green sand in them because it looks better. It's just, I mean, I suppose you back in the stance, kind of get ball first, kind of lower your expectations. Let's say you have a 9-iron into the green or something, and it's like a green light opportunity. It's just more like getting the strike on it. You know, let's try and get it to 20 or 30 foot and just make a par and move on. Kind of, you have to lower your expectations a little bit, but I can't remember actually being in a divot, Paddy, which is a good thing.
Good news. Do you allow for it in yardage at all? I'd always like go up a club and down the grip, if you get me. When I go into a divot, I don't know if that's the right approach at all.
It would be a feel thing for the player, but especially if you have a front pin or if it's into the wind, for example, out of a divot, especially if it's a sandy divot or if it's even maybe just an old divot. I mean, getting the strike on it's difficult, so the ball's not going to go as far. So if you're into the wind or you have a front pin, you're definitely thinking, rather than just a couple past it, you're probably more like 7 or 8 past it, just in case it comes out a little bit soft, and then it'll hopefully still be in the green. And you know, but it's a feel thing, really. It depends how bad the divot is. Some of them are pretty awful, like, you know.
If it's one of John Green's, it might be severe. You might need a scaffold to get down it. He's asked the next question. The lantern. Some player Chris is. What's the most number of clubs Chris has broken in a round? I think he's using some inside information.
1, I think. I've definitely. I mean, I've broken a club a few times. Many years ago when I was a hot-headed teenager, but I don't think I've ever broken 2. But interesting question.
That's from 2010 or before. Maybe he was lined up beside you in the north or something.
Yeah,
and something didn't go your way. Mark 23 Delaney, and this might give us a bit of insight into a week in the life. The routine from the first day of competition week, for you anyway, as a caddy on tour.
The first day, what do you mean, the routine for the week?
The routine from the first, no, we might go into all 7 days. But Monday to Wednesday, because there's a question further down from Owl Switcheroo from Owen asking, do you get any practice in on Monday and Tuesday for tour week? So maybe describe Monday. Yeah. So, you know, you just rock up on a Thursday morning and carry on. So Monday to Thursday, what happens?
Well, it depends whenever you arrive. So, for example, when I head down to South Africa next month, I'm going to get in Sunday afternoon, and on Monday it'll become a practice day because we've had a couple of weeks off. If you're traveling tournament to tournament, sometimes you don't arrive until Monday lunchtime or maybe even Monday night, depending on flight schedules. So Monday can be a bit of a first practice day / bonus day / you might have an early flight that morning, get in lunchtime, do a couple hours, blah, blah, blah. Try to treat Monday as a bonus, really. Typical practice day Tuesday, you'll do usually 18 holes, sometimes 9 if you're fortunate enough to do 9 on Monday. You'll do some work on the range, you'll do your putting drills, you do short game drills. Coaches and equipment manufacturers, that's their busy days. They're always testing stuff and fucking about different lies, and you know, they might be changing bounce on wedges and maybe trying a putter with an extra degree of loft, maybe changing a 2-iron 5-wood, all that shit. So you'll be doing a lot of that sort of on Tuesday, which is, for a caddy, can be quite boring. But apart from that, you know, you're doing most of your work on the course. You've your course prepped, and then you'll do your normal stuff that you go through. And then Wednesday will typically be, you might be in the Pro-Am, you might have to do 9 holes in the Pro-Am, which again is just like a bonus, getting out in the golf course, seeing it again, or you'll do another 9 holes practice maybe in the morning before the Pro-Am starts, again, getting all your prep done on the course, through lines, distances. And then the afternoon again, they might be finishing up some equipment work with their whatever manufacturers. Their coaches generally would be leaving on a Wednesday night, or I suppose some of them will stay to Thursday or Friday, but it changes week to week, doesn't it? And you'll just have all your prep done for the course. You'll be going through your yardages on TrackMan or GC Quad on the range. You'll be altitude, all those things, and then obviously you'll be very accustomed to what the wind's going to do, and then the pin positions come out on Wednesday night for the first day, and then you'll start thinking about, okay, right, the wind's forecast out of the southwest tomorrow, and okay, that tee shot, that tee shot, that tee shot, oh, that tee shot's going to be straight into the wind. Okay, they might use an up tee there because they're using a back pin. Okay, right, so that's probably going to be an up tee, so that cover in the right bunker is 290, it's going to be into the wind. They'll probably push the tee up, so that might be coverable, and you're thinking about your lines and stuff and sort of getting in tournament mode at that stage. But you've done all your prep, so.
Yeah, good. So it's not, you're not there
no, you're
7-irons down the range.
You're not out shelling balls and playing. You never get a chance to play. Usually, I've always found that, you'd be setting up the putting drills for your player. So let's say you do your practice, you do 9 holes in the morning or something, and then you have a bit of lunch, and then you're doing for an afternoon practice session, and you say you're meeting him at the putting green at 1 o'clock or something. Usually he'll pitch up about 10 past 1. So you'll be there from about 10 to 1. So, you end up being there ridiculously long because he'll be late, you'll be early. And then you set up his putting drills, and you end up always hitting a few putts, trying to get a straight putt on the chalk line, or if you're putting down a mirror for start line work, the best way to find a straight putt is to hit the straight putt. So you do end up practicing your putting, and messing about, especially on a Monday or Tuesday for 5 or 10 minutes. So that's about the highlight of the golf.
Beware Chris Selfridge's short game when he's home, is what you're basically saying.
6 foot straight putts would be my specialty. So.
At Brackfact, seems to be from Cork by his profile. Best advice you can give to a mid-handicap to go low. That might be so. When you see amateurs maybe on a Wednesday,
yes.
Is there any tips or advice you give, or maybe that the pros give them?
Well, I mean, general advice from pro-ams, I suppose, would be if the lad you're playing with, and sometimes you do play with some decent players, but most of the time they're going to be mid-handicappers, aren't they? Sort of anywhere between 12 and 20. Whatever club they're hitting, tick one more. You rarely see someone over the back. Yes, occasionally someone might have 90 yards and they might fin something 40 yards over the green or something. But like if they're hitting the middle of the face, I would say, without trying to exaggerate, 80 to 90% of shots come up short of the pin. I'm not saying short of the green, but it's amazing, you get to a par 3 sometimes, and they do these closest to the pin challenges and pro-ams and stuff. And, let's say there's some prize on offer and whatever, and the lad you're playing with's got like a 7-iron out, and you're thinking to yourself, mate, there's absolutely no chance. Just hit your 6. If you hit it really well, it might get there,
Yeah, like on my yardage chart, that's on my yardage book, I have like the averages in bold, but then like the min and the max, so like the spread of 10 shots.
Yeah.
Minimum my 7-iron is like 154. The average is 164, and when I really put the power move on or I thin it, it might be 171. So that's my chart. So it's like, okay.
Yeah, but at least, I mean, you're a good player, right? But at least you're sensible enough to do that. What do you play off now? What, 6 or 7 or
3? So
3, right?
We made a move this year. Yeah, we made a move since we last spoke, Chris.
I feel like I've offended you there, saying 6 or 7. But
no, absolutely. It just means I'm giving up out the right expectations that I need more shots.
It's good. Fair play.
Chat sound. Connor, CME_11 asks, what's your favourite hole at Moyola?
Favourite hole at Moyola? Sorry, what was the name again? Connor who? This must be someone I know.
I don't have a surname. CME_11 on Twitter. So you can go see Connor out.
Connor, I mean, it's obviously someone called Connor, isn't it? I think the first hole is a great hole. It's the dead straight, lovely tee shot from the back tees. Like in the summertime, it's quite, it's picturesque. It's I've always liked it, and even like through the years, I've always liked sort of going to the back tee and hitting 2 or 3 balls down there, and visually it's quite intimidating, but it's also quite nice. It's just a really good hole, so yeah, we'll go with that.
Off with a bang. Owl Switcheroo, who asked around the practice Monday, Tuesdays, has a question, and this one that I've been interested in knowing. Has the rule change in allowing rangefinders, has that sped up or slowed down play?
Well, I've never actually been able to use a rangefinder. Can you use them in the USPGA or something, is it?
I think they're allowed in, but they can't have the slope. I don't know if they're allowed in tournament play. But I did see some lads shoot them down.
you're allowed to use them in practice. I think you can use them in LIV. Maybe you can.
Oh, you can do anything over there.
Yeah, well, that's true. It's where we all want to end up eventually, I think. But so right, again, this is a sort of question you get asked sometimes in the bar, and I'll try not to be too boring with this answer, right? But if we picture ourselves in a hole right now that we all know, right? So let's call it the 18th at Lahinch, right?
Gravy.
And you've got 160 yards or something, right? Yep. So, and we can laser it, and it's going to tell you, right, you have 160 yards. Okay, so that's super. So essentially, that could speed up getting the number. If someone I'm caddying for, we can just laser the pin. However, we'll have the pin positions, and we'll know, right, that pin is, let's call it 12 on and 5 from the right. So you can't laser the front of the green, so I'm going to have to refer to the book anyway, and I'm therefore going to know if it's 160, it's 148 to the front. And let's say there's a little ridge or something that you want to cover, it's a little bit of a false front. Okay, that's 154. So I'm going to have to reference all this stuff in my book anyway. And let's say that green slopes from, I can't remember, does it slope from right to left or what?
Right to left, yeah, you have it.
Again,
right.
I'm going to have to look at my book for this. I'm also going to have to look at my book for okay, what's our optimal target here? Let's assume there's no wind, which doesn't happen that often, as you know, at Lynch, but let's assume there is. Well, we're going to know, right, okay, 160, whatever, it can't be short. Let's say there's a little false front there. Okay, 155 is the minimum, right? We're thinking somewhere around maybe 163 here. And maybe 1 or 2 left of it, depending on what right's like. Does it kick in from the right? I think it might do.
There's a big mounting on the right, but you don't want to be left of the green because that's like the valley of sin.
Whatever, we're only using this as an example. So, I've had to refer to my book so many times there anyway. So, now don't get me wrong, getting the actual yardage 160 laser done in a practice round or something, whenever you're just you're not that concerned about strategy, you're just getting used to the course, it can speed things up a little bit. But I don't think it's going to speed tournament play up, because everything I've just said there, well, that's going to be part of your process. And the laser is completely useless for most of that, other than the actual raw number. Now, it might stop you fucking up and getting the number wrong. For example, 148 front plus 12, and you've added that up to 150 when it should be 160. You know what I mean? Like a mental error like that. It could help you in that sense, but actually speeding play up, I don't think so.
Yeah, because even the yardage book, especially on tour, is so comprehensive that all bases are covered. So a rangefinder is it would be one more thing to do.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of an affirmation of one variable. But yeah, Jens Vagland, who is the best caddy ever, aside from your good self?
The best caddy ever? Jeez, I mean, great question. I mean, Stevie Williams, probably. I mean, his reputation speaks for it all, doesn't it? I've been fortunate enough to get to meet him and sort of chat to him for 15 or 20 minutes a few years ago. Lovely fella, very good caddy, works hard. I mean, that's a hard question, so I'll just go with that, will I?
Do. In terms of up close and personal, I was at the JP McManus. I caddied in that for one of the M's. It raised 140 million. It raised 140 million.
Jesus.
It came out yesterday. And we got put with Bryson on day 2. And his caddy at the time he's changed since, I think, was Brian. I can't remember his surname, but my God, the level of arithmetic he had to deal with was stocious. You know, we didn't quite get into air density in Adair, but we got.
Bryson would be insane, like, you know, seeing the things that man does. You know, it's wouldn't be for everyone, but yeah, I suppose it seems to work for him all right, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, whatever about the arithmetic, you're like Brian. I think his name was Brian. Like, I was whatever, carrying a sandbag, and of course an American had every Tom, Dick and Harry of an accessory in it. Maybe that's why I was slow. But Bryson's caddy was at all times like 100 yards ahead of the whole group down the fairway, with the notebook out, jotting down all the different yards and everything, which I thought was insane, especially when it's kind of like a social game for them compared to where they were going the week after. Yeah. The Open was next, wasn't it? But that really struck me as the level of intensity, I suppose, that some caddies, and he enjoyed it. He was having a great day, you know. So just a day at work. Matt PGA Byrne, I'm assuming he's a PGA professional. How do you give a yardage when? Now he said when the ball is wet, so maybe when it is wet. How do you give a yardage when the ball is wet is the question. But
So
do you
when
know
the
for that?
ball, what do you mean the ball's wet? So you're talking what, like morning dew or something?
We'll go with that. We'll go with morning dew and Moyola. Will we do that on the first approach
Well,
shot?
I've never caddied a Moyola, but I'll visually sort of try and explain it. So the ball, with the morning dew, it'll go a little bit shorter, so it tends to come out. Well, I think the friction in the face, it brings a spin down, but it also brings the ball speed down. I think that's the technical term to it. I've listened to this in details before. The guy Marty Jertson in America, who does ballnamics stuff. So
he's ping, isn't he, Marty?
Yeah, he's very good. Like, and he's done podcasts and stuff. So let's just go with that. I know it goes a little bit shorter. The spin goes down, but it depends what sort of club you're hitting, because talking about it going shorter and the spin goes down. But if you were hitting, like, say, a full 56 into the green or something, the green's obviously going to be wet, so you need to be aware of it spinning back too much as well. So it will change. But if you've got your 7-iron in the morning, let's say you hit your 7-iron. How far do you hit it, Paddy? 170?
The average, yeah, 171.
Right, we'll go with 171 then. Right, so you're probably looking at, depending on how much dew there is, and there's also temperature as well, because in the morning time it's typically a little bit cooler. Say 5 degrees cooler, so 5 degrees you would be in for, obviously no altitude in Northern Ireland, but you'd be in for 5 yards shorter there. So like, say you had 160 pin and it was like 180 to the back, just go ahead and hit your 7-iron, because it's never going to go more than 4 or 5 past, so just hit it and we'll see. There's no point hitting an 8.
And the minimum on that is like 161, so I'm still carrying the front edge to scrape on.
There you go.
We're okay. We've done that. Dave Tyrrell, Dave T. Wexford, how many beers do you have each night? Not just overnight. Each night. So this might be from caddy culture in the 70s, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, 15 a night probably, something like that.
God bless late tea times, as I.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be the world's biggest drinker, like, so none, unfortunately. I hate to be very boring, but I'm going to go with none.
That's okay. It's been a while for myself as well. That's what happens when you have kids and stuff. So you can't be having 50 beers a night and you're doing 25,000 steps and arithmetic the day after. Like drinking on the leaving cert. Enda_Nagel, if you got a better bag, would you leave your player?
Well, depends, and again, good question. It depends on the bond with the player, how long you've been with them. Let's say you're working for someone sort of middle of the road, and you get an offer to go work for someone much better. Yes, of course. I've done it before. I've left a player to go work for another player, but it would need to be a substantial improvement, essentially in status tour. Like, let's say I was working for someone on DP World Tour, whatever, middle of the road, and someone from LIV got in touch to offer you the job. Well, yeah, of course you're going to go,
That is Colin the Chef's question. Would you rather be on the LIV Tour?
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't? I mean, it's funny, yeah, you want to be in LIV because that's where the money is, but like, you want to be in the majors as well. So like, if you were on LIV, if you're with someone who's in the majors, and I've never won a tournament as a caddy, so like I really want to win a tournament. So if you said to me now, like, you can go work and LIV and do that for 3 years and you're going to make, a couple of $100,000 a year, or you could maybe keep doing what you're doing and get lucky and maybe win a couple of times on DP World Tour, or say once a year for 3 years, but at the end of those 3 years you're going to have made a little bit less money. I would definitely go for that one, winning and making a bit less money, but we all have a certain amount we want to make, and there's like a minimum threshold. But once you go above that, you just want to win tournaments, don't you?
100%. I think it's funny that, not funny, but people have this completely different association or disassociation with LIV because of like where the money's coming from. But look at it in terms of moving from a job to a job. And it's like, well, do you want to work? It's like, I take the the Dustin Johnson analogy. It's like you work less for more money. Who wouldn't take that?
Yeah.
Right? So So do you know what I mean? But like anybody listening, if somebody at the firm or the shop or the business across the road said you can do 3 days a week for more money, would you say no? Right? That's my question to anybody listening.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like Caddy's moved over and back. There's no word or knowledge of that. Like it's more so on the players, which is also wrong. I think it's more about who like founded the tour should be called into question.
Right.
But
yeah, there's been no like media and stuff about caddies. Not that not that there really should be, to be honest. But like, I suppose it's the player's decision, isn't it? I mean, I can't imagine. Again, I'm throwing out a bit of a rash statement here, but I can't imagine a caddy working for a player and the player sort of asking the caddy, well, what do you think? I've got this offer to go to live here for 10 million a year, and I don't know. I really want to play in the, KLM Open or whatever, and all that stuff. And it's like, well, I can't imagine the caddy turning around saying, yeah, I think you should just keep doing what you're doing and keep playing. So you're guaranteed. Well, you're not guaranteed anything, but you're looking likely that everyone involved, player, coach, caddy, management company, everyone's going to probably triple or quadruple their income, aren't they, yearly? So, like, I mean, it's an easy one, really, isn't it?
It is an easy one. Not that it's a trend over the last couple of years, but like it's not any different to what would have happened in years and decades gone by. Is players having one of their best friends caddy for them. It's like Rory and Harry. So like Harry won the North. He's won numerous championships. So like people tend to forget that, but especially people who don't know Irish golf don't even know this. Oh, Rory's mate is carrying his bag. Like Shane carries for John Murphy. After that, I'm sure there's more. Like Dustin Johnson's brother carries for him. So my question is, like John mentioned that he finds his preparation is better when, like, he was for the first year he was staying there and Airbnbs with Shane and whatever else. And I think they've been in Ireland since they're 10. But now it's much more kind of not business like, but like Shane is with the caddies most weeks and John is either with players or on his own or whatever. What's your preference? Or do you like set out when you're with a player? Yeah, I'll see you on the practice green on Monday, rather than where are we staying together? How do you approach things and set expectations that way?
I haven't really stayed with a player much. My first year caddying, I stayed with Michael Hoey because he was my mate. That was my in. I caddied that season 20-something tournaments. That was my in, and that was great. We stayed together most weeks in an Airbnb. And he's a close friend of mine, so that was different. Obviously, my next full-time job was Ryan Fox for the next 2 years, and we never stayed together. On the couple of rare occasions we had an apartment, I know I stayed at his apartment in London for Wentworth, because it was during COVID. They were doing all those silly rules where you had to, you couldn't stay here and you could only share with this and blah, blah, blah. But generally it's just been do your own thing. But I think, as whenever you were speaking there, like Shane caddying for, or Harry caddying for Rory, etc., like whenever you have your mate in the bag, you have an opportunity there. So, obviously, first things first is they need to be sort of an expert in the golf industry, or maybe not an expert, but they have to be at least, you got to know what's up, right? You have the opportunity to train your dream caddy to do everything the way you want it done. And then you also have the personal relationship away from golf. So like a wee bit of empathy, a wee bit of understanding of what's going on. So like, why wouldn't you do that? As long as you got the right person. Obviously, John having Shane, all his life, and Rory having Harry, all his life. You have the opportunity to train your dream caddy to exactly the way you want it to be. So, that sounds brilliant to me,
Now that you put it that way, it makes absolute sense. Do you know what I mean? It's like any managers out there, if you have to hire the next person for the team and you just get like a blank canvas and you can just train them in on the way the processes already work or you want them to work. It's like, this is gold dust here. So why wouldn't you? I never looked at it that way. Exactly.
100%.
Point one performance.
Yes.
Because I think that's why you are one of the top listened podcasts of history on this podcast, is because of what you do off the course, or maybe with players, or I think you're too modest in terms of what you do for the players around preparation, high performance, right? So I think we covered it kind of episode 98 when you were stuck in Africa. You were in a hotel room for a month. Remember that?
Well, I wasn't in Africa. So what happened was I was in Africa and then I got red listed and then I had to come back to the UK and I ended up in a quarantine hotel in London for 19 nights, 20 days.
Nice.
Yeah, so good memory. Good memory.
What a day. I watched the whole Crown series 4 times.
Yeah.
So I've picked some bits from posts from the Instagram's 21 performance that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Right. And one which I never actually thought of doing, considering where I'm from, it's absolutely sacrilegious stuff, is wind maps. Right. And that intrigues me in terms of how do you do them, first of all, and then why would you do them? I'm assuming the why, but how do you do them in the first place?
Well, we're very lucky until most of the time we have a wind map provided for us. So would be, I can hear someone at my door there. I'm just going to ignore that. Did you hear that?
No.
All right. Maybe I shouldn't have mentioned it then. So on tour, we have wind maps provided for us. You know, they'll be in the office. It'll just be like what's the word? It could be a screenshot of the course, you know, from above, like Google Earth or something.
Gotcha.
Or, you know, if you go hunting, sometimes you can get like a scorecard of the course from the pro shop and they might have a wind map on the back of it, which is really good. So, but on occasions you won't have that. And maybe whenever I did a few weeks for Tom on the challenge, or a season for Tom on the challenge tour, a lot of the time they didn't have the wind maps. So now to answer your question, why would you do it? So if you imagine the picture of a golf course here, right, you know, from overhead, right, to Lahinch again. And let's say there's a couple of holes that run parallel, like 15.
I'll take this down, right?
All right, have you got it?
This will give you a visual. There we go, right?
Right,
there's all the holes. And anyone listening to the podcast, this will be lost in you. And if it makes it, this should be on YouTube anyway. So there's an overhead kind of hole by hole of Lahinch, right? It might look backwards, but we'll see.
Right, so say, you know, it doesn't, let's just say, even if you just picture a couple of holes that run similar together. So like, can't see that map overly well with my connection here, but like, is it, I'm trying to think like the...
You know the holes, 12 and 2 and 3. 2 was par 4 for the Irish Open. Par 5 for Smere Marshall.
If you think, let's just think of like the 18th and the somewhere else, like the 16th or something, right? Right. So, you know, let's say you have a wind map drawn out and the wind today is going to be south-southwest, moving more westerly as the day moves on from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, blah, blah, blah. So you have this done, your weather stuff done, right? And you hit a shot and it should be downwind, but it's downwind from like 4:30, okay? Like on the clock face. So do you know what I mean? 4:30. So let's say you've got an 8 iron and the lie is perfect and all is well in the world and you've hit it well and everything's great. And you know that the wind's at 4:30 and this shot. But then let's say you're playing the 18th hole and this wind's exactly the same for this example, right? But you're playing from the left-hand side of the fairway to a right pin. So if you look at your wind map, the wind's not 4:30 anymore. It's actually about 4 o'clock on this wind. So there's less help and slightly more off the right. Does that make any sense to anyone?
It does. I'm drawing out the shot. I'm literally drawing out the shot. It's what I'm doing, and it makes complete sense. For this example,
we're using the exact same shot. Blah blah blah. The wind's the same, and it's consistent, and it hasn't changed direction. Of course, if it was like this, caddying would probably be pretty easy. But if it's gone from 4:30, half off the right, half help, and then all of a sudden your left hand side of the fairway to a right pin, and it's the same strength, blah, blah, blah. And you know that your 8 iron that should carry 160, you hit it well and it carried 168 the last time. Now, because you're sort of hitting more across wind, there's still some help. You know, that instead of being 8 of help as such, it probably might only be 3 or 5 of help here. So you need to be a wee bit more wary of what's short, especially if it's a front pin, blah, blah, blah. You know?
No, that can be
very useful for obviously when the wind's off the left, off the right, down. But it's more so when it's fluctuating the help or the hurt from sort of 4:30 in the clock face to 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Because if you've got a 5 o'clock wind, it almost plays the same as straight down.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? So there might be 20 yards of help in that wind for a shot, but once it goes to 4:30 to 4 o'clock, it can still feel down because it's still a downwind shot, but it's more off the right. So if you're hitting that shot, and especially if there's no draw bias to the shot, it's actually not going to go that far. It's still going to go further than your 160 number or whatever, but you might be in around 165. While when the wind's more straight down, you're closer to 178 or something.
I think it'd be a really good exercise for people to do is just have a printout of their course, Google Maps or wherever. I was just thinking out there and go, okay, just for my knowledge of tee shots tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Because I hate it when the wind is into off the left, right? Because my miss is obviously high right, okay?
Yeah.
So that's just going to spin off into next year off the planet. So even to know they are the tee shots I have to face tomorrow or this afternoon just helps with that whole whoop stress factor coming down.
Yeah,
Of
course, it makes you feel more prepared. It's useful for anyone, but like I've done it myself whenever I've played a bit in the past, even just the last 4 years when I've caddied and played some semi-competitive golf locally. It's all well and good until you stand up, Paddy, and you just like hit it straight out of the heel, and it's completely useless. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really this sort of information is better suited to people who hit the middle of the face most of the time.
Most of the time, and that brings us nicely through to another post on your at the point one performance was I think it's on the back like the membership tag you get, and your yardage is on one side per club, and on the other side was the point one process, which is number one, calculate, strategize. What does a goal or good shot look like, or what does the goal shot look like, and then full commit, right? Yeah. So I think most of us can calculate wind and pin and yardage and moisture, even air density if you're pricing. Strategize. What are you covering there? High, like ball flight, low, high, what?
No, strategize would just be more so. Again, I can't see the post you're referring to, but it'll be more towards sort of decade numbers and thinking, right, okay, if the pin's 4 from the left and there's a big bunker left of the green, on the right side there's plenty of room, blah blah blah.
Where can I miss?
Okay, well, where do I want this ball to? It's not necessarily where can I miss. Don't think that would be the best way to think before the shot, but it's more like okay, where should I aim here? Like if you think about like in this situation I gave there, pins 4 from the left, whatever, you're hitting an 8 iron. Okay, right, I'm aiming 3 or 4 yards right of this pin. Okay, that's my target, and now that's just where I'm trying to hit it. And like where the ball's going to go is a complete dispersion. It doesn't mean you're going to hit it 3 yards right, but doing that, will increase your chances of making more birdies and hopefully maybe making a couple less bogeys. You're still going to hit the odd shit shot, but if you think about that example, and if you've got an 8 iron into a green, if you get the ball in the hole in 3 strokes, that's pretty good, right? Especially for someone, especially if your handicap's 6 or above, or I suppose anyone above scratch it would be if you have an 8 iron in your hand. So you hit it around 150 or something. So like every time you're going to make some twos. You're going to hit it close sometimes. You're going to hole some 20 footers. You're going to hole some 30 footers. So what can you really do here to just give yourself as many 20 footers or 8 footers as possible? And so it'd be more strategically what you should do. And then, at prime in question, sort of picked this one up from Carl Morris many years ago. And I've always thought it's a good question to ask yourself. Well, just before you hit a shot, well, what does actually a good shot look like here? It's not, and rather than thinking, oh, where can't I miss here and blah, 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 what does an actual good shot look like? And then get the feeling of hitting a good shot. And it just sort of maybe goes into your visualization a little bit. But, what are you actually trying to do here? Not what you're not trying to do. You're not trying to hit it left and you don't want to slice this one right. Or, you don't, when you're standing over the ball, you're thinking about the lesson you had last week and you're trying to cup your left wrist at the backswing. And look, this is golf. There's loads of interference. But just to prime yourself before the shot to think, well, what does a good shot look like? And think, okay, that's what it looks like. It's just there,
Yeah. The next step then is full commit, and then record it, yes or no. And that's, did I commit in it? The last bullet point was you have 90% plus goal. Can you explain that concept to me? What are we calculating there?
Yeah, so you're recording your commitment to every shot. I don't think I've ever achieved 90% plus. I tried to do this a little bit myself a couple of years ago when I was caddying and whenever I'm playing, and especially if you're playing competitively among friends, and you're playing for a few quid or whatever. But it's being really strict with yourself. Like, do you go through the right process? Do you pick, what should be technically the right target? And do you fully commit to the shot? Are you really clear about what you're trying to do? Have you a full, clear picture in your mind of what a good shot looks like? And then can you let it go from there? And that doesn't mean that, did you hit a great shot? Okay, we'll give that a tick. You could hit a pretty shit shot, but if you feel like you gave yourself the best opportunity in the pre-shot routine, your strategy and everything, then it's a tick. Make sense?
Makes sense.
And I would always say, be strict with yourself. When I've done that before for 18 holes, I've come off with like about half and half.
Yeah.
Because there's so much interference on the golf course. I've found myself in that before. Like, you're playing well and you're 4 under after 6 holes or something. Well, it becomes very difficult to do in the 7th because you're thinking to yourself, "Oh shit, don't hit it there."
Yeah. I guess I've been 4 under to 6. I've been 2. So yeah, it definitely turns into a don't fuck harder. This up situation.
There's more interference, and then that's again where you should just prime yourself more along the lines of, okay, what does a good shot look like here, Paddy? Like, what are you actually trying to do?
100%. Block practice, yes or no? This was around the post you had around a 50-yard shot. I think it was 50 balls, and you were kind of manually mapping the dispersion of those. And then you had like
I think I know the post you're talking about. I think it was 150.
Yeah. And then you had like 4 or 5 takeaways, which I've never done after I don't generally do block practice. I would do for wedges kind of a couple times a year, but I never actually write down like the takeaway. So maybe things have changed in how you approach things, because that might have been from a year or 2 years ago. Block practice, yes or no?
Well, I think that post is from quite a few years ago, but I think it's from a session I did about 8 years ago. So it's definitely not today or yesterday, but I think it serves its purpose. Yeah. I think it serves its purpose.
And takeaways. So last time I did a block session, it's generally around wedges, right?
Mm-hmm.
40, 60 or 50, 80, whatever. But I never actually write down the takeaways. Generally, most of them are short, 5 to 6 yards. And generally 80-20 or 80% are missing right to the pin.
Mm-hmm.
With my takeaways. Is there anything else you'd note aside from direct results on a black practice session?
Well, I think that session you're referring to there, that was actually at the bottom range, I think at Carton House, and many years ago, and I was picking up my own balls, and you're probably knowing the post. I don't think there was too much wind, was there? But yeah, I was just trying to figure out, where the general dispersion was, and what I've learned from block practice. Now, again, it's a mess of information. You can go very technical with your game. It can become a waste of time. You need to be properly focused. It's getting the balance right. But what I've found with block practice over the years is, personally, my misses become, misses, not my wife, but my misses become very, so if you can see the screen, say that your target's here or something, and you're hitting a mid-iron. My misses trend, the trend is more like this. The shots that are right are short, and the shots that are left are long.
Yeah.
And there's generally, like, if it's sort of 5 yards left, it's 2 or 3 yards long. You could half it. And if it's 5 yards right, it's 2 or 3 yards short. So if it's 10 yards right, say I've hit like an 8-iron, I've hit a poor shot to the right, and it's 10 yards right, it usually will be about 5 yards short. And then the same if I've hit like a big dirty pull 8-iron or 7-iron or whatever, and it's 10 yards left, it's usually 5 yards long. So I've learned that that's my dispersion whenever I look at a pin position. So say you've got a front right pin, for example, and the pin's like 8 on, and you think to yourself, oh, okay, no, it's fine, 8-iron's enough. Well, if I leak it to the right, it will go shorter. And this is assuming you've worked out the wind right and you've hit, there's many things that can interfere, but that's what I've picked up from it over the years.
No, definitely. For me, it's getting that information outside. Obviously, we're doing this now where it's outside, but a lot of people are tending to do that indoors on a TrackMan sim, and I don't get. I have that indoor internal break where if I'm swinging indoors, I'm not swinging as fast. 100%. I'm down like 5 to 10 miles an hour because I played Saturday. I was mincing irons. And then I went to the sim with my son on Sunday, and it was just completely, I know here, I'm just trying not the ball to come back and hit me off the impact pad or whatever,
Right, okay. Interesting.
So I would recommend people to get out on a range with their pro, with a TrackMan, or go with 30 balls and go collect them and map it manually rather than do it indoors on a sim, because just for dispersion reasons, short or long.
Yeah.
We'll all end up taking 2 clubs more than we should if we all did it indoors, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Last bit we'll cover, victory logs. And what I think to finish on, talking about victory. What is a victory log for the uneducated like me, and why should we be keeping one?
Well, a victory log, I mean, just to remind you of all your wins, you know, sort of visual pictures, maybe yourself with trophies, maybe people you look up to with trophies, people you know that have achieved things that you want to achieve with trophies. And, you know, it's like, again, Dave Allrood.
No.
He's kind of like a famous guy. He was in rugby and golf, and he's wrote The Pressure Principle, and I'd imagine some of your listeners will know, but he's big into like focusing on facts. So like he would always get people he works with to write down 3 facts at the end of the day of things they've done really well, just so you're like accumulating little wins and you're reminding yourself, and you know, of little things you've done well. And then it just kind of leads confidence, but as well as confidence in that cliche, it gives you momentum as well, because like every day's not going to be a good day, no chance. But like you played golf. Sorry, you said you played on Saturday. Like how'd you play?
Saturday, yeah. Played well. So if I was to say 3 wins, and this is something I do with my son Christopher, who's autism, and it's about focusing on the experience than more so focusing on the result, right? Because that's one thing a lot of people do with juniors in every sport is, oh, did you win? Or what did you shoot? And that is the wrong question. It could be like, and something I ask Christopher every time I meet him is, what are the 3 best things from school or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it would be, I can feel and visually see the results of the stack system.
Yeah,
I had the ball in play on holes in parts of the fairways I'd never fucking been before.
Yeah.
Off the tee, which is really nice to see. I coped with the wind really consistently in terms of I'd no high rights. And the third one would be in terms of I just felt the swing was always in control in terms of I executed on this move myself and Niall are working on, that it was just I wasn't trying very hard. And maybe that's because I didn't have a scorecard in my back pocket and it was a casual day at the office, but it was just I wasn't thinking about swing. I was just
good. So
playing,
like,
do you know what I mean? So yeah.
Again, just having like, you know, obviously great examples, you played well, blah blah blah, but you know, one of your facts that you could have in your victory log, if you want to write it down or think about it, it could even be along the lines of, let's say you did have a card out in the competition. So you're playing competition now and you're just all over the place and you're like, you're 7 over after 9. You're just having a shite day, right? So things are awful. It's starting to rain now and you're thinking to yourself like, get me out of here. But you sort of reset yourself and you think to yourself, okay, come on, let's just focus on the back 9 here. And you start thinking to yourself, okay, what does a good shot look like here, Paddy? And you play the back 9, and regardless of what your score is, you know, good, bad, ugly, whatever you end up shooting in the end, you think to yourself, I did a really good job there. That was good, you know? If I could just be like that a bit more often, you know, and this doesn't matter if you've shot 85 or 72, you know, just thinking to yourself, okay, I got something out of that, you know? Rather than, because if you're 7 over after 9, you know, you could easily throw the head up and just, it's a complete waste of time. And then you don't even want to play next week either, you know, because you're playing shite, aren't you?
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good. It's something I heard from Donald Scott as well is write a brief before you go out. What are you looking to achieve? What your main focus on, etc. So yeah, it's all very good advice. So when's the victory log journals coming out, Chris? When you releasing the merch?
I don't have any time for any of that stuff now. Even the 0.1, you know, stuff. I know you've asked me some questions there, so like I only work with sort of three lads now in Ireland, and you know I don't have the capacity to take on any more. I enjoy it. It's a hobby. It's a side hustle hobby for me, and that's all it is. You know, and I do enjoy it. You know, and you know I'm not taking on anyone else. For example, I'm not doing anything with it. It's just something I enjoy doing. So like.
Great work.
That, really.
No, it's great work. It's definitely insights I hope you will share more of as the months go on, because between win maps and victory logs, they're all really good takeaways for those that are looking for that 1% or looking to maybe get away from I need my wrist to be bowed up here. And maybe just focus on a visualization of the shot you want to hit, because the brain generally reacts visually to what you're looking to do, right?
Well, again, that question from earlier, what does a good shot look like? You're just after saying your brain reacts visually. So there you go. So remember that when you're thinking of your left wrist and your backswing sometime.
I don't think about wrist positions at all. We generally go on very, very coarse farmer language golf swing. It's like, just get your left arse out of the way. That's the swing thought at the top of the backswing at the moment, and get it out of the way fast. But what's your winter look like? You're off to Africa in a couple of weeks, so when this comes out, you'll probably be in Africa. So what's your plan between now through New Year's?
Don't really have any sort of big plans. I did a week there for after I finished with my last full-time employer, Will Bestling. I did a week for Matty Smith in Sota Grande, just filling in. And he played well. He came second, actually. But I'm doing 2 more weeks for him in Africa before Christmas. Again, just filling in for his full-time man, who's a New Zealand friend of mine. South African Open in Leopard Creek. So I'm doing those 2 weeks for him, and then just sort of see what happens. So I don't have a full-time employer in golf at the moment, but I'll do those 2 weeks, and then it'll bring me through the new year, and hopefully people get in touch. Simple as that, really.
100%, no doubt. You'll be on a bag, absolutely, and looking forward to you getting the W next season, huh?
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah, it would be nice, but we'll see. We'll keep trying anyway, won't we?
As always, a great chat, Chris. Thanks for your time. Really insightful. No, there's not often I take notes, but I was taking notes today. No slight on anybody else, but when you hear good stuff, you want to write it down. So hopefully people listening got the same, and we need to play golf. Maybe we might get it in when you're home after the Africa trip. I might take a trip up the M1 there.
Can't see that happening over the winter, Paddy. But yeah, well,
that was a question. Is winter golf in Ireland worth it? I think that was the question. So you might have answered that inadvertently there.
Winter golf. I think any golf's worth it. But like I'm big for playing golf with like your friends and people you want to play with, and really enjoying being out there, and competition as well. Maybe playing for lunch or a few pints or something. I love it. Like, so as long as the weather's not absolutely horrific, I still love it.
No, same as we'll take care of it. Chris, thanks a million.
Yep, thanks, Paddy.
Chris Selfridge, everybody. Really, really insightful. I'm definitely going to be taking some takeaways myself. Number 1, wind maps. I play golf in Ireland. I play golf in Lanes Golf Club, and I've never made a wind map before because I didn't know the value of it. And now I definitely do. There's some notorious tee shots at the best of times, let alone when the wind is coming from a place I don't expect it to, because my first engagement with it is on the course. So wind maps, number 1 for me. And number 2, block practice. I think it has its place, and especially for this time of year, we're recording this in November, putting it out in maybe November as well. Definitely something to do. Hopefully I get my hands on a track mat to help me dial in the dispersion instead of manually pacing it out. But that's it. That's this week's show. Thank you all for listening. Thanks to 4Golf Custom for powering it as they do each week. Make sure to book your fitting with Derek. Christmas is coming. 4golf.ie/booking for your tour level experience custom fitting in Cleancastle, and get those clubs built and out to you hopefully by Christmas. And they are very good at what they do in terms of turnaround time. That's it. Until we tee up again soon, I'm Paddy.